Hi again, welcome to your second video on a game that you can memorize. This one is twice as long as the last one, but I believe you can do it. Unlike the last game, which we showed you, which is just useful for understanding a weakness on that diagonal, h4 to e1, but is at the same time a game which on its own never actually comes up. This next game that you're going to learn is probably the game that's been played the most times in history. You know, sometimes people play the same game as other people have played. This game here has basically been played by myself a dozen times on the losing side. I once went to a chess class when I didn't know anything about chess. It was kind of like a chess class camp kind of situation. There's no actual lesson. It was just a thing put on by the city where kids could gather one day in the summer and play chess. And I went there, and there was some kid who performed the checkmate you're about to learn on me all day long, basically. I couldn't figure out how to stop it. So I got checkmated by the same piece on the same square all day long till my mother came to pick me up. So this is a pattern that is super common. If you show up at a kid's chess club anywhere, the first thing someone's going to try to do to you is this. And the reason that this opening is, or that this game or pattern is called the scholar's mate, is because it's scholar like student, not like a PhD scholar or professor of something or a researcher, but scholar like a student, like a kid. In other words, this is what every kid tries to do 100 times in a row to other kids at their school chess club, or if they go to a chess tournament, it's the first thing they're going to try on a hopefully unsuspecting opponent, etc. So that's why it's called the Scholar's Mate. It is the game that has probably been played the most times ever. Now, before I show you the moves of it, let me just tell you that this pattern here is based on an important weakness in the starting position. This square here, f2 for white and f7 for black, is what I call and think of, and probably correctly so, what I think of as the weakest square on the board in the starting position. Now, why is that square so weak? Well, if you look at every square in your opponent's camp, right, all over here, whatever, you can look through all of them. This square here is the poorest defended, more or less. It's defended only by the king. No other piece. The rooks are not defended in the starting position, but they are sheltered by this whole line of pawns, so nothing can get to them at the moment. But this is, it's in the front. It can be attacked, and it has only one defender and not like the piece you normally want to be fighting with again, right? As you saw in the other game, the game of chess, the king usually waits quite a while before willingly joining the fray till some of the danger has passed. So this is a very weak square, only defended by one piece. And also with the way the pieces are set up, white has three pieces that can all get to that square pretty quickly, which creates possibilities for a kind of, rapid fire attack against the square. You'll see the knight can get there in two moves, knight f3 to g5 or knight f3 to e5. That's two moves to get there. The bishop can get there basically in one move. It can already be firing there. And the queen has two different ways. This is going to be a little bit many arrows for you all. But the queen has two ways to attack it within one move as well. So let me just highlight the queen's options. f3 to f7 or h5 to f7. So in addition to the checkmate I'm about to teach you, there's a host of other patterns that are based on this weak square here. And this one should be pretty useful for you. So this one starts out with e4, e5, which is a much better opening than what you've seen in the last video to memorize. This is one of the most standard openings in chess. The other most standard start to a chess game would probably be like this with the queen pawns. So you move the two king pawns. These are the e4 and e5 squares, and they release the bishop and queen for both sides. Now, in this position, white's going to play a move which is not the best move, but it is to bring out the queen, which a lot of beginners, they love the power of the queen, so they just want to start fighting with her as soon as possible, get her out there, and maybe she'll take care of the whole opponent's army for you like, a hero in some kind of superhero story. So the queen comes out here, starts to look at f7, starts to look at the king, and also attacks an undefended pawn on e5. Now, the most logical move for black here is the one played in this game, which is to develop a knight, bring it to a good square, and stop the queen's threat at the same time. It's really good if you can stop your opponent's threats by playing moves that you actually want to play, and this is such a move. Now, white plays bishop to c4, and you may see white's threat coming. If you do, fantastic. I didn't see it coming as a kid, so don't feel bad if you don't see it coming. In this game, black doesn't see it coming, and they continue with their following of excellent opening principles by bringing out another knight. This time, instead of defending something, they bring out the knight while attacking something. They attack the queen and the center pawn, bring out a piece to a great square. Everything is potentially going great for black, except that white sneaks past the knight with the queen and delivers checkmate right in that king's face. The king's got nowhere to go, and the queen is defended by this bishop. That's why it takes at least 2 pieces to set up almost any checkmate or almost any real attack. Had white attempted to do this whole checkmate without the bishop and just played queen f7 checkmate, black would have been forced by the rules of chess. There's only one move you're allowed to play here as black. Black would have been basically forced to win the game, because ultimately they would have to figure out that the only way that they're allowed to play is king takes queen. Although I imagine some players now and then in the course of history have been convinced by their opponent that they were checkmated and shook hands and agreed that they'd lost in this position instead of taking the queen. But our game goes bishop c4. The 2 pieces converge on f7. That is the weakest square. That is where scholar's mate occurs. Knight f6 is played, and queen f7 is scholar's mate. Yeah, so let's go through this again. See if you can memorize the game. So we start out with a double king pawn, or e4, e5 opening. White brings out the queen with a threat on the e5 pawn. Black's move is to defend the e5 pawn, developing the knight. White brings out the bishop, threatening checkmate. Black misses that and gets checkmated. For now, I'd like you to memorize this game. We may supply you with a future video lesson on how to escape or avoid this checkmate. But in any case, that might be an interesting question for you to think about for yourselves as well. Do you see a way for black to not get checkmated in the way they do in this game? But for memorizing this game, black brings out the second knight. White delivers checkmate. Go over it a couple times. Test yourself in a week or two. See if you remember it. That's it for now. See you later.